Nathan Robinson, editor of Current Affairs, and I'm here with...
Oren Nimni, legal editor of Current Affairs.
And we have just completed an experience.
An experiment,
something unlike anything I've ever done. I really... Well, I don't know if I could say in the past tense that I was bad at cooking. I'm probably still bad at cooking.
Hey. You have the confidence of a chef.
I was not... I was not only not good at cooking, but I also didn't really know how to feed myself for a long time, and I've been very bad at... I mean, I live on protein shakes and protein bars, essentially, and like a banana and a bagel. And what we wanted to do was... And one of the reasons I hated learning how to cook is that everyone who cooks professionally...
so good at it.
Is just so good at it.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do was... I at least like cooking and know how to feed myself.
He's good.
And Nathan doesn't. And what we thought we would try to do is see if I could work with Nathan, and through the process we could figure out, not here are some recipes like other cooking shows too. Like there's great cooking shows on YouTube. We've both watched Binging with Babish.
He's great. We
fantastic.
Love Mr. Babish.
But he has a ton of supplies. He has a ton of resources. And he makes things perfectly.
He's just really good. He's just really good. People want to watch him because he's really
good
at making
And we
food.
wanted to do something that was different, which was, what do you do when someone kind of knows how to cook and someone doesn't really know how to cook?
You never get to see someone who's bad at cooking.
Yeah, just
learning the
through
process. Even though that's what you will be when you try to imitate Mr. Babish or whatever.
And so what we wanted to do also was not specifically do recipes that you would follow point by point, but instead just do some dishes that kind of help us and help Nathan and help you, hopefully, learn how to think about what foods you like, what foods you should eat, what flavors go together, and how to make things that are edible.
And how to look at the grocery store and think, I could make this, I could make this, this is what I need, this is what I need. I mean, we laid out a whole spread of ingredients, and at first they were very intimidating because I thought,
these are just vegetables.
There's a big pile of kale. I don't know how to turn this big pile of kale into something I can eat. And we also want to talk about the practical aspect of cooking in your life, which is real people do not just live in like a video where you're making a
kitchen studio where you can spend 10 hours on cooking.
You live in a place where like it's a mess and you don't
have all the utensils you need.
You need to think about making stuff that you can keep for later and what will keep and what can be repurposed into something else. And so we wanted to start thinking about that stuff too, because that's the real, like, can I make lunches for all of this week by making one thing today?
And how do I make breakfasts that are simple? And how do I make a large dinner that I could eat over a couple of days?
And how do I impress someone with a meal, right? Because you don't just make food for yourself. You also sometimes want to make food for someone else. And how do you think about what to make them, and how do you make something that they're going to actually go, oh, you put some work into this?
And so we started off pretty simply. We didn't use very many spices beyond salt and pepper. We just used, vegetables, eggs, cheese. Yeah. Everything was vegetarian. Everything was healthy. But the other thing that we did as far as simplicity was we didn't embark on huge cooking adventures. These were all things that used pretty much the same ingredients, the same vegetables across things, but you made a bunch of different dishes.
So we did a series of videos, and you may be watching this final video, which is our sort of reflection on the project, or you may be listening to this on the Current Affairs podcast. So we did a series of videos in which Oren sort of teaches me, but not even you teach me, but also like.
Well, I took the Malatesta thing. So Enrico Malatesta has a quote.
The great Italian anarchist of the late 19th and early 20th century.
So he has a quote where he says, "We don't want to liberate the people. We want the people to liberate themselves." And it's sort of about.
That's why I hesitated when I said the word teacher, because
so what we were trying to do, and I don't know if I succeeded, and I don't know if Nathan succeeded, but what we were trying to do was also make it not be, well, I'm instructing you on how to do this, and then you are learning.
Here's the technique. Learn the technique.
And if you don't do it properly, you feel like an asshole. Instead, what I wanted to do, and what I hope we accomplished, was getting Nathan to feel like he had control over his own destiny in the cooking, and that he had the power to do the things that he wanted to do. And I was there to say, well, this is how I might have done it.
Yeah, because I didn't want to just be told here's how to make this thing, here's how to make this thing. But the how to think part, it was really, really critical. And I did find myself beginning to, by the end.
You had an intuition
I
that started to come
have certain intuitions where I went, oh, we could substitute this with that. So we're sitting here at the table now with
some
number
of the dishes
the
that we
things
made.
that we have made. And if you're listening to on audio, we will describe the things that we have made.
So in front of me, we've got a quiche that we made with some zucchini that was just left over from another meal that we had made, which was some what did we even make with the zucchini?
No, I think the zucchini was new. But
no, the zucchini we put in the lasagna.
Oh, we put that. You're right. No, we
so
put the zucchini
was in the lasagna.
We made it with asparagus that we had
put in a dinner for someone else. We put some spinach in there that we had put in some sandwiches, and we had a bought pie crust, and we used some eggs and cheese that we had used for other dishes as well.
And no real recipe. Just looking at the series of vegetables that we had, and knowing that a quiche is just like eggs in a pie crust
with some vegetables. Yes, always salt and pepper. That was one of the main lessons.
One of my key lessons. So we have the quiche. We have a kale salad, a kale and carrot greens salad. Because I learned that you could use the leaves
on Nathan's own suggestion. Nathan asked a bunch of good questions. Some turned out poorly, which was, can you eat onion skin? And he found out that you couldn't.
You can't really.
I didn't tell him yes or no,
well,
really.
It's not that you can't.
You can.
It's that the experience of eating it is not very pleasant for the majority of people. Yes. I think that's like an empirical. Exactly. One of the things that Oren tried to do over the course of this is stray away from normative judgments towards more empirical judgments.
So most people don't like eating onion skin. There might be one person that does.
Because his approach was not like, this is the way you should make dinner, but think about what is as a factual matter, what is the thing that you like? So instead of like, here is a prescriptive rule that the culinary universe has come up with that you have to follow, if you don't like the rule, it doesn't exist for you.
Exactly. You can do whatever
you can eat a big pile of onion skins for dinner if you want to do.
If you want to do
plate raw.
You can, if you want to do that, you can do that.
Like the guy who ate a bicycle.
You can do that.
If you want to do that.
And the reason we tried to do it that way is not just because we're leftists, and that is, I think, the more leftist ethic.
The socialist approach to cooking.
But the other reason we tried to do it that way is I actually think that's how you learn better, because you actually take control of what you're doing. Someone's not telling you exactly what you need to do. And what you expressed to me about cooking was that you always felt bad and terrified because you knew that you were going to mess it up. And I think if you take that away, like if you take away the feeling that if you don't chop something properly, you fucked up the whole meal and it's not worth making. I mean, the first meal we made were sweet potato tacos, and we were just hacking up the sweet potatoes.
I mean, I was making some pretty ugly sweet potatoes, to be honest. And I kept asking you, how am I supposed to chop the sweet potatoes? And he said, well, I can show you different techniques if you want, but also for these purposes, we are making sweet potato tacos. The important thing about what we're trying to do is we're trying to get sweet potatoes at a small enough size to where we can boil them to they're soft and edible.
Yeah. And that's the goal.
But that's all we care about.
And then it doesn't matter what you do from there.
And they weren't pretty tacos.
No.
They weren't beautiful, but they were really, really tasty.
Yeah, and they were edible. The potato was cooked, and it tasted good. And so, just to finish off the description of this salad, we have a kale salad that has carrot greens in it.
Yeah.
It has some of the sweet potato that we boiled for the taco. We also put in the salad. By your own suggestion. We initially had the salad without it, and you were like, could we put sweet potato in it?
Yeah.
And we could. And that was one of the other lessons that we tried to inculcate was you can make just big batches of stuff.
Yes.
And use it in a bunch of different things.
Right.
And actually, making big batches and buying in bulk, if you can, is more cost-effective and more efficient time-wise. And then the last thing that we put in here were some crispy chickpeas.
Yes. One of the lessons was that you taught me was about how basically 3 ways of cooking things. You can boil it, you can saute it, or you can roast it. So we just took, and you could roast most vegetables. So you just put it in some oil, make these roasted chickpeas. These are just chickpeas.
Just chickpeas, salt, pepper,
different from lentils, I found out.
Yes, you learned what chickpeas are and what zucchini is.
Yes, which is not a cucumber.
It's not
which
a cucumber.
Which is the one falafel's made with. Is falafel made with?
That's chickpea.
That's chickpeas.
That's chickpea.
Yes,
I thought you were talking about zucchini or cucumber.
No, I was talking about, is it chickpeas or
It's
lentils?
chickpea.
It's chickpeas.
Chickpea.
Okay, yeah, because I always thought it was made with lentils because it's green. So we just roasted them, and Oren said they could be a good substitute for croutons.
Yeah, because Nathan's been also trying to get a lot more protein, which is hard sometimes for people who are vegetarian or vegan.
Yeah,
chickpeas have a good amount of protein.
Have these roasted chickpeas,
which are
and frankly,
tasty.
they're really, really tasty. They're nice. And
yeah,
crunchy.
we almost couldn't stop eating them before we put them in the salad.
We kept just nibbling these, and you can do them as a snack. And so I really did begin to think, about what I did, but I didn't have to roast the chickpeas. I could have put the chickpeas in the tacos.
Could have put the chickpeas
if I had
could have sautéed them.
Could have sautéed the chickpeas. I don't know if you boil chickpeas, but
not usually, but you kind of know why, right? The things that we boiled were things that were hard,
small and soft. We boil the things like carrots and potatoes and
squash sometimes. That's
and
hard.
Squash, yes. So there's no need to. Yeah, all right. So, but we saute the other stuff, and we learned, how to. And essentially how to use judgment, when is the thing done, rather than using timers. Again, this is all stuff that comes naturally to some people and that some people know a lot about, and probably, this is just way beyond most people's level. But for me, someone who, resorts to fast food a lot, someone who resorts to microwave meals and protein bars and just pre-made processed foods, to have this much that is made by hand is very unusual for me.
Yeah, and I think, we did really want to take an approach that was a little bit leftist in the sense of non-hierarchical, where we didn't say like, oh, there are rules that you must have, or there's a way that you must make this. We just said, okay, well, let's just figure out how to feed ourselves.
Yeah.
And let's just do this. And we think that making things is probably pretty satisfying, and we should probably figure out how to do it, because it's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Oh, over here, one of the other things we made. This is just what is it? Yogurt, lemon juice, and dill with some salt and pepper.
Always.
And that's it. And we use this for this roasted asparagus that we made, which is behind the lasagna. These roasted asparagus, which turned out to be and just put a little bit of this on that, and just really tasty, really tangy.
Because we learned about acid and how
we learned the salt, fat, acid, heat lady. Do you know her name? I can't remember her name.
I'm forgetting her name right now. Sparky would be very mad at us. She knows
what she's doing.
She knows what she's doing, because those are the important things.
Yeah.
Those are the important things for making things taste good. But, one of the other things is why it's kind of important to be able to feed yourself, which is...
You gotta eat. As Checkers says, you gotta eat.
You gotta eat. And sometimes it's really nice if you have a loved one, a child, a parent, someone who maybe can't cook for themselves. It's really nice to... Why are you playing with the lasagna?
Because it looks tasty. Sorry. Okay, I'll look at you. If I look at this lasagna, I'm gonna want to eat it. I play with my food. I've always played with.
I know you were mashing around the stuff before.
I'm a fidget. Sorry.
You might want to feed another person.
Sorry. Yes, you might
want to cook for another person, and that's important as a caretaking thing.
Yeah.
And usually that work is also left not to men.
Right.
And so it's actually not in when you're not cooking, someone else is cooking for you.
Someone else is cooking for you. Or the industrial food system is making something products for you that then you will cook with a microwave. But that is being made by laborers. So yes, learn to cook because it helps you contribute to society in some ways. If you feed someone, you have done something for them. You've kept them alive for a day.
And then, in the utopia, they're always like, well, who's going to take out the trash? Who's going to, do all these things? Well, you should have some skills.
You should have you should go, well, I can. Who's gonna cook the lasagna? And I was like,
Tonight,
I will.
I'll cook the lasagna.
I'll cook the lasagna.
It's like, I'll pay the rent.
I'll pay the rent. You want to be the Mountie riding in to save the... This is non-Canadians are not going to have any idea. Don't explain it. It's just an inside thing for the Canadians in the listenership.
You must pay the rent. I can't pay the rent. You must pay the rent. I'll pay
I
the
know
rent.
that all Canadians know this, by the way.
Of course.
And no non-Canadians. Okay. So we also made a lasagna. Quite simple. This is a lasagna for one, but
you can make it in a bigger batch and freeze it or eat it over a series of days.
And I have not tried it. The lasagna is one. I think the one thing, other than the cookies, which we
made at the end,
that I have not tried. But that too was
similar ingredients. We put not the cucumber. You've got me thinking cucumber. The zucchini.
The zucchini.
We put the zucchini. We put some cheese.
Oh, yeah.
We put some noodles.
Yes.
We put tomato sauce.
Yes.
It was very simple.
Yeah.
It was very fast.
Real simple and real fast. And really does look nice. I mean, I can't take my eyes off the lasagna. It looks very special. Then we made these roasted asparaguses,
which we put in the quiche, and we also had just as a side dish with some tofu and some carrot puree and some mashed potatoes.
And I found that I just okay. I found that I just absolutely love the tops of these once they've been roasted.
They get a little crispy.
They have a real.
They get all the flavor in there. Yeah.
They're just extraordinary. I know that I like asparagus, but I don't. I've never had them this way, and
they're pretty good roasted.
But they were so easy. They were just like
we just pop them in a pan,
oil, put the salt and pepper on, toss them in the oven. And then you have roasted asparagus that is really quite delicious. Probably the thing that was our most daring
with the cookies
were the cookies.
Because I actually don't know how to bake at all. I kind of know how to cook, but
he knows how to bake a little bit.
But like bread, like a loaf of bread.
He can make really nice bread and hamantaschen.
Yeah.
But baking's a whole other world, and it's not necessarily easy.
No, and we know people that can bake very well, and it's extremely impressive.
Who can bake, and baking is one where I want to start with recipes.
Yeah, that's where I would start with a recipe too.
Even as something as simple as a plate of cookies,
because it's just not intuitive. Like the cooking,
you can't really go like you can say I'm going to whip up a salad. And then you can think through
what tastes good together. I'll put them together.
Flavors. There's a series of formulas. Yeah. With baking, I'm going to whip up some cookies. Unless you're an experienced baker who's made tons of cookies, and I'm sure it's the same process for someone who is a very experienced baker.
I think so. Although they do say, baking is more of a science than an art.
But
I'm actually. Do you mind if I?
Why don't we try the cookies?
We have no idea how these turned out because we also,
how our cookies went.
To be fair, we used a blender to cream the butter and sugar, and we
substituted maple syrup for vanilla extract, and we used a blender when we should have used
it. The texture seems fine.
Texture's okay. There's a nice soft in the middle and crispy on the outside. Let's see.
It's not a bad cookie.
Not a bad cookie. These have almonds in them because we had some almonds lying around.
That's an edible cookie.
And frankly, just tasting this, it's not a very distinctive cookie.
No. We made a simple sugar cookie.
In fact, it tastes just like generic sugar cookie with almonds. Maple syrup, you don't really notice the maple syrup at all. But
whoever said that was a good substitute for vanilla extract.
That worked.
I mean, kind of, but it seems like you could have done nothing.
Well, yeah. Would you taste the vanilla extract?
I feel like you taste vanilla.
But this, it worked in the sense that nothing went wrong.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't taste very mapley though.
But it doesn't taste like a maple almond cookie. But I tell you, if you had this with some ice cream, if you put one of these cookies with I think it'd be pretty nice.
Or a little jam in the middle.
Jam.
Put a little divot, drop some jam in, which we know you have in your fridge.
Put a little... Huh.
Yeah, have you ever had those cookies, like Thumbprint Cookies?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
In the cookie, when you bake it.
Yeah. So, but that's interesting, because we were talking about on our baking video whether we were about to really seriously fail. Because one of the premises when we were putting this video series together was, I want to see people fail at cooking. And I want to be that person who fails. Because I think it's really important for people to understand that everyone else is human, and that everyone else who seems so put together and who seems so competent because they select the image that they present to the world, in reality, everyone's a fumbler and a bumbler and a disaster.
Yeah, we didn't do any pre-made stuff that we brought out. We just kind of bumbled through it.
No.
With very limited supplies. We're in a weird place that has like one pot and one pan.
Yeah, we rented a kitchen, and apparently they did not equip it
No
well.
whisk.
And
no can opener, hence the video of us hacking open a can of beans.
Yes, Oren hacked open a can of beans with a knife, which I was very impressed by, but which you should never, ever, ever do. Don't try this at home. Don't try it. Anyway, oh God, just thinking about that, it was terrible. No, but I wanted people to see failure. But the way we did this, you kind of picked deliberately a way of doing this where it's hard to fail. The cookies are not great. But the cookies were, but they're not a failure.
Yeah, they're passable.
And the cookies were the hardest thing we did. And they were the thing where we didn't use a recipe, we just kind of used heuristics.
Yeah, we sort of used some general ratios.
General ratios, and even when you venture into baking, for the simple stuff, it seems like you can get passable at it.
Yeah. If you want something
easily.
Great, especially something that you've never tried before and that's super inventive, a recipe is probably your way to go.
Yeah.
But if you want to make basic things day to day, have one baked thing that you're good at, have some salads, have some healthy food that you eat regularly, then you don't need to make cooking a whole project. Yeah. It can be something that's very sustainable.
I like the almond cookies, and these were a real quick thing.
Yeah, that was so
cookies
fast.
Are really, just pop it in the bowl, mix it up, put it in the thing, and hope that your cookies don't congeal together into
one cookie blob.
A big cookie blob, which we successfully avoided.
We did. I mean, was there anything else that... I guess here's the question.
Yeah.
Were there any big questions you had that we didn't touch on?
Are there big questions that we didn't touch on? Well, here's one of them. Where do I go next? Let's say that, okay, I can make a salad. I know some things that I could substitute. I know some different leaves I could like put in this salad. I can make some roasted vegetables. I can make a nice lasagna. Assume that I can make a quiche. And I can make some variations. Where would you suggest? But me being me, I'm a very sort of conservative person. I stick to. In fact, you've seen I go through phases, and I find a thing I can eat.
Burritos for 6 months.
The quesadilla phase. I eat a quesadilla for 6 months. So left to my own devices, I will probably just make variations on the things that we have done. Where do I go next?
So here's what I would suggest for you is figure out like 7 vegetables that you're comfortable making and that you like to eat. Mm-hmm. And don't come up with things that you're going to make. Just go to the grocery store and get those along with, sort of your things that you're going to get for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then when you come home, you have the vegetables and you sort of have to create. And you know how to cook all of them. And you might end up making variations on these themes, and that's fine. Because you want to get comfortable just creating for a little bit. And then you can start branching out. Mm-hmm. And the way that you branch out is you can put them in new forms. You can then look at recipe books for ideas. That's what recipe books are good. They're like, oh, well, I know you know how to cook vegetables because... But have you tried cooking them like this?
Yeah.
Or putting them with these 2 vegetables together that maybe you hadn't thought about?
Right.
So that's when a recipe book can be good. Or talking to people about the things that they like.
Yeah.
But, there are a number of things that I know that, you might have eaten when you were a kid that you probably like that we didn't make here today.
Yeah.
But they all involve boiling, sautéing, or baking / roasting that you can put together very easily.
And I like that you're not suggesting specifics, you're suggesting a process.
Yeah, there's no specific dish that you should make next.
Yeah, right.
There's just a way that you should think about it, and slowly you should expand out the things that you try. So then when you go to the grocery store, you can say, well, I don't have to get sweet potatoes and asparagus and kale. because this week I'm in the mood for, I'm in the mood for actual cucumbers rather than zucchini, or I'm in the mood for
I don't know
eggplants,
what you do with those.
Or I'm in the mood for, some particular sort of other dishes that, maybe, or other flavors. And you can mix and match and do that.
Okay.
And I think if you're someone that's very conservative and very nervous about making things, then having an ever-expanding ring of things that are makeable makes sense.
Yeah. How do you know when you see like 50 spices? Do you go in and you're like, never try that, gonna buy a spice, or do you like otherwise I'm gonna just stick to my 5 spices?
So I rarely buy spices that I don't. I use a lot of spices. We used almost no spices in this meal, but I use a lot of spices because that's the food that I grew up with. So those are the flavors that are familiar to me.
Yeah.
I rarely buy a spice that I don't know because actually spices are kind of expensive.
Yes. Well, that's what I was thinking. They're giant containers.
Yeah.
So like, how does anyone ever
you probably
want
to use
spice?
And so what I would recommend for that's another place where recipes are sometimes good, or understanding the family that a spice falls into. Okay. So we looked at, for this lasagna, we used a jarred tomato sauce, which is totally fine. But the jarred tomato sauce had kind of like the classic Italian spices. So it had like some garlic in it. It had some basil. It had some oregano. And so you kind of know that you like the sauce.
Yeah.
And so that basil and oregano can go together.
Right.
And so if you started with just oregano, then you know that, okay, you're someone that can use basil. Because you know what it tastes like. Right. And so that's, trying foods with those different things in it is one way to expand. Another way is definitely recipes.
Right.
That can give you suggestions of, okay, you've never tried cumin before.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
So I love cumin. I think cumin's a really useful spice. You've never tried cumin before.
But it's not like I'm going to go buy a big thing of cumin and go like, what if I pop this on the lasagna? Because I have no idea if it's a lasagna thing.
But instead, what you might do is buy a tiny one, make a specific recipe that you buy specific ingredients for, that has cumin in it. You taste it, you see if you like it. And then by the flavor, you'll know, oh, that might go really well with... That was the cumin, and that might go really well with sweet potato, but not really well in lasagna.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's very hard to know... When I say, where to go next, it's you're thinking about things that you've never had and never tasted, and trying to. I don't know. Should I try cumin?
I think you should try cumin.
What should I get on cumin?
I like cumin a lot, but you might not.
What is a thing that has tends to have cumin?
I mean, you could put cumin in a lot of things. You could put cumin in a nice stew.
Stew.
You could, we roasted some tofu. You could, instead of just salt and pepper, you could put a little cumin on
that would have been a circumstance.
Or on the chickpeas, we also just put salt and pepper. You could put some cumin on that.
That would have been on roasted vegetables.
Roasted vegetables, cumin's great on roasted vegetables.
Huh. Okay, I'm sure and they're probably when I taste it, I'll go.
You'll be like,
oh,
that's
a familiar
cumin.
Taste. Yeah. I've had this before, because a lot of it is I just don't know what things are. You don't know. You've had a lot of stuff without realizing the component parts.
Yeah, and I think you probably want to end up in a wheelhouse of like 10 or 12 spices that you use regularly.
Yeah.
And then those are the ones you invest in. If you want to make something special, maybe you go out and get something new.
Yeah.
But you want a generally same thing that you can just make a bunch of different variations on. And that way you don't have to think and plan very specifically for each meal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems right. I mean, this is the whole philosophy, and what I love and what I hope people get out of the videos is this is the transformative power of having like a not a formula. I don't want to call it a formula because it isn't a formula.
It's also like a process of how to think about.
But it is a process of how to think without like going just. Because what I used to do is I got this, I was given this wonderful book, How to Cook Everything Vegetarian by Mark Bittman. And Mark Bittman actually is a very accessible
He's sort of similar to this.
He's got your kind of ethic where he's radically like, try it 5 different ways, I don't care. And he's also got the non-pretentious like, I don't care if you use store-bought this and that, but here's what I think tastes better. I mean, he has a whole long introduction he has a philosophy of cooking that I really like, and and it's deliberately anti-snobbish. And so this How to Cook Everything Vegetarian, which I mean I strongly recommend as a recipe book, because it's just
great.
And he has like a whole, he's written like 10 of these giant books. And it's fantastic, but it's a giant compilation of recipes. So
and you never know what to find in there. It's like, oh my god.
So I look through it, and the time I made something for you,
the fried rice,
the fried rice, and the weird Parmesan bowls.
Weird Parmesan bowls.
The weird Parmesan bowls were my Bittman recipe, by the way.
Maybe not the best recipe.
They didn't go that well, but that came as a result of me just flipping open the thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. I didn't like just flipping over the thing and going...
Now that you have a little bit of a foundation, I think what you can do with that book is you now know how to deal with potatoes, for example.
Yeah.
You can roast them, you can boil them. Now you say, okay, well, I've tried them the ways that we've tried them. Yeah. And Bittman has a whole section on potatoes. It's like 5 million ways to make potatoes. Yeah. Now you go and you look at it and you say, okay, I want to know a new way to make a potato. Yeah. You have a reason that you're going there, rather than just a random adventure. And it's still going to be using ingredients that you know how to use. It's not going to be a special trip.
Right. I realized that we tried to explore some of the foundations of cooking, and it sort of surprised me how the foundations weren't even what I expected them to be.
What did you think they were going to be?
When I think of the foundations, I think of like, here are the 3 different ways you slice things. Right?
Yeah. So like the French technique. Here's how you julienne.
The juliennes. Here's how you do, and then you wrap it up and you chop.
Yeah.
But so I thought it was all going to be like knife. But in the end, that was really not. You had to show me how to use a knife without chopping off my finger.
But those are just means to an end, right? But you don't serve the knife chop. The knife chop serves you.
Yes, and I did feel so I want a safe. You want a safe knife chop. But
and you want everything to be the same size so it cooks evenly.
There's a lot of stuff that I think really good chefs do that you don't have to do.
You don't have to. All the things that good chefs do are just like the sort of a form of doing the base thing. So you want small pieces that are all the same size. Well, doing, brunoising thing, which is a type of chop, is a way to get something into a small size, but you don't need to do it that way.
And of course, the way I did it was aggressively inefficient. So you can learn more efficient techniques if you want to.
But in the end, the efficiency gap isn't huge if you're just making a meal for yourself.
No, and it wasn't. Again, it wasn't the foundation was not like, here we need to get your whisking technique.
No, really that's like to make it more efficient. You want the base. Because
I've always felt like when I start like whisking something, I'm bad at this. My whisking technique is horrible. Then you watch people who are good at whisking, and they just and you're just like, they are like an electric mixer with their hands, and you think like, man, I'm bad at whisking, but really, the thing gets whisked eventually. If you keep moving, the
question with whisking is, what's the goal of the whisking? And the goal is to get air, and you can do that in a bunch of different ways.
It just took a while.
There's easier ways and harder ways, and you know this from starting to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's more proper and less proper ways to do a workout.
Yeah.
But in the end, your muscles are moving.
And you shouldn't look this is the other thing with exercise, you shouldn't look too much at the big buff guys in the gym, because they will make you feel their very existence.
Gordon Ramsay is just the big buff guy in the cooking gym.
It's like, this is the problem with cooking, is that it's like watching, it's like going to the gym and everyone's one of these huge, hulking, and you just think, I suck.
Yeah, I could never be that.
I suck so much. But the thing is that I learned at the gym from this great trainer Kevin that I have now, and he's lovely because he has sort of the same philosophy of exercise that you have with cooking, which is, let's start with things we can do and that are satisfying. It doesn't, it needs to make you feel good. It needs to, we don't want you to feel horrible about this whole experience. No, we want to find, so even if they're simple things, even if they're not, impressive looking things.
Doesn't matter. The whole point is to get the baseline and to feel like, wow, I've worked out, or wow, I've worked out.
It feels, there's something very satisfying about doing a simple thing. So we start with simple things that you can do, and then you feel good about it. So even if nobody's going to be impressed, right? And it's interesting that you started off our videos by literally just having whipped cream. That was your first
just to show that you can turn something into something else.
From cream into whipped cream.
That's all it is.
And nobody's going to be impressed by that.
No, it's just whipped cream.
Except me.
You're like, oh my God.
I'm like, I turned the cream into whipped cream. And it's different.
And only just by doing this.
I had an effect on the world.
You did.
And nobody can say that I didn't.
You did. There is a little bit of a godly thing about cooking where you've created something out of nothing.
I get why people like it. There's David Graeber has this discussion. The late, unfortunately, David Graeber, the great anarchist anthropologist, has this thing about. And I don't think it's original to him, but it's called the pleasure of being the cause. And the pleasure of being the cause is this sensation. He's talking about why do animals play.
Is this the thing with the worms,
the
little
worm like jump, and there are all these theories that it must be evolutionary or whatever.
It must be necessary.
But he said, well, there's something about feeling, doing something and feeling, noticing that your body, you have willed something to happen in the world. And I do feel like there is something immensely satisfying at knowing I am the god of this lasagna.
Yeah. This lasagna did not exist before, and it could not exist without you.
There was darkness, and I said, let there be lasagna, and here it is. I brought it into existence. It's the same reason people have kids.
It literally could not have happened without you. This is like having kids. You're welcome.
I mean, you create. They say, well, they call it being pregnant having a bun in the oven.
Yeah,
because.
But it's true. You've created something out of nothing, and there is a thing. It was always funny to me actually that you didn't cook, because you actually are both a maximalist in the sense of you like art, you like doing things.
Yeah.
And you're creative and you like creating things. Like the magazine is very much like cooking.
Well, but I don't like destroying things. And one of the reasons that I never liked cooking was because you eat your creations. It's sick. It's like eating your kids. Or if God ate the earth. Like
Have you looked outside? God's eating the earth.
It's perverse. Like the idea that you make this beautiful thing. Like there's something very, I don't know, melancholy about the fact that the thing you create is you create it for a blip.
Well,
it's gone.
It depends how you think about what you've created. So if you made a meal for someone else and they ate it, what's the thing that you've created? Is it just the food? Or is it the feeling in the other person that they've been cared for?
It's also true that because you are what you eat in a literal
sense, you're creating your own self.
The thing you have made is now part of them.
Yes.
You have now made part of them.
Exactly.
Right? If I make a lasagna and you eat it,
you've created part of me.
I made a thing that is now you.
Also you continue to make yourself.
It's the same reason I never liked theater, though. I never wanted to do theater because it was
because it ended?
Well, you do it for like 12 nights and then it's over. And there's no record of it, even.
That's
like
true.
They don't film you can't really film theatrical productions very well. They never look good. It's an event, and you're there in the moment. But then after a moment, it's gone. And cooking has some of that, like after a moment, it's gone thing.
You like live music.
I like going to but I would never make live music.
That's true.
I would make albums, but I wouldn't make because albums last. There's something, but but my attitude is also. In some ways, folly, because you can't make it. Nothing will ever truly last. I mean, all things have to pass. It's just a matter of shorter.
All things have to pass. It is really a spectrum, but there is another thing, which is the things that pass. I mean, the things that don't pass as easily.
Yeah.
Right. Are sort of memories and things like the way that some of what we talked about is how you figure out what you like to eat is based off of what you had as a kid, or what reminds you of a place.
Yeah.
And that, yes, I mean, the food is gone. But the memory remains. And if you talk to people, they talk about, I'm making, if you talk to people from the Midwest, they're like, I'm making this casserole the exact same way my grandmother made this casserole. I make things the exact same way my grandfather made them. Yeah. And there is a thing of longevity. It's like an oral tradition.
It is. And I mean, it's a culture, right? You're all keeping a culture alive.
That's part of creating culture. And I mean, as we talked about, recipes, even ones that are written down, are really just stories of, hey, 50 years ago, I tried making asparagus this way. it turned out it was pretty tasty when you stick it in the oven. You should try it.
A recipe is a story of what I did and how you could do it too.
And you don't have to follow the story exactly, because that would be crazy, actually, if you thought you could follow it exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you what I did and how it worked out for me.
Yes. Recipe is a story from the past. So I think that about covers it. I think we made things that I was surprised at how. I was certainly surprised the moment I bit into the tacos. I was surprised at how good they were because
it looked not that great.
They did not look good.
Food doesn't need to look good.
It looked like, I mean, you and I tend to make fun of the kind of mush that in like
an anarchist co-op
communal houses, people like put a bunch of the, stuff. I don't even know if there's a name for what it is, but it always involves, what is the thing it always involves?
Nutritional yeast.
Nutritional yeast. But you make just this pile of food and it's very bland, and then because...
Well, the reason it's bland is because they don't do salt and pepper.
And there's a problem because leftists are sort of nice and supportive that they go, oh, it's the most delicious thing I've ever had. This is so good. Thank you so much. And no one can be honest. But but it looked like that.
It looked like
that. And then we put it in the tacos, and I went, oh my god, this is better than I expected.
And food. I mean, I think the last thing is that food can look nice. I like when food looks nice. I think it's pleasurable to make things look beautiful. But if that's not your game, then food need not look nice.
Yeah, I mean, this lasagna is kind of a mess around the edges.
Yeah.
But I'm going to eat it, and it's going to be good.
It's going to be tasty. It's cheese,
the
sauce.
The salad's very pretty, mostly because the kale is very green, and
the quiche is a good-looking quiche.
Is actually a very good-looking quiche. But, of course, we bought a pie crust.
We did.
And if we had made our pie crust, it might look
have looked ragged.
It would...
But the question is, does it taste good, and do you like it, and does it give you fuel for the next day?
Yeah. The cookies aren't pretty, but the cookies, as I say, if you had these with some ice cream, it'd be very nice. Well, I'm kind of hungry.
Likewise, I think we should probably
eat a bit of this lasagna that I have been playing with, and a bit of salad. It's like this kind of like what matters when.
Yeah.
And some things.
It's also.
Things matter conditionally.
Yeah, most things matter conditionally, right?
Like whether food is beautiful matters conditionally.
If you're trying to impress someone.
I nearly have it actually. It's nearly coming out.
Yeah, if you're trying to impress someone, it matters if food looks good.
Yeah, but it usually matters whether.
That's why food at restaurant looks good, right? Because they're trying to impress you.
Yes, restaurant food. Yes, right. They're trying to make it look good.
But
and of course,
grandmother food, which is like the best food, never looks great.
And of course, there's so many lies. Food in commercials literally isn't the food. It's just fake. They use
shaving cream and all this stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's outrageous. I mean, it should be illegal.
Well, it makes you feel like a real asshole when you can't produce it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, lasagna is very good.
I'm gonna have a little bit of this dill yogurt sauce.
Wow. Well, you should try this. You should.
Yeah, let me get a little piece of that.
Because it's nice and crispy. The cheese. Oh, I like that a lot.
Yeah, see, that was super simple too.
That was yogurt. I mean, everything that we've made is good. I mean, the cookies are kind of mediocre, but they are not bad. And
no, they're edible.
Else is really quite good, despite secret to the quiche. There we go. Yogurt with dill on quiche. Oh,
that's not bad.
Huh? Yeah. Wow. I'm finally starting to understand where flavor comes from. I'm English, so we don't have that in my country.
You have good baked goods though.
That's all we have. Problem is we're 100% baking country. The cooking stuff, we'll never learn. And baking and cooking, I as we found out, are just two totally different things. So
wildly different.
A nation of bakers. Just as you can be a fantastic cook and not a very good baker, you can have a nation of amazing bakers who just can't
cook it all.
Can't cook it all.
Well, current affairs.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this little experiment.
And if you don't subscribe to Current Affairs Magazine, you really, really ought to.
You're missing out.
We don't have recipes, but we do have a radically democratic spirit that will make you feel good about yourself and a little bit hopeful in a hopeless world, perhaps.
What good food is for your stomach,
yeah,
Current Affairs is for your brain.
Yes, Current Affairs is the periodical equivalent of whatever we've made that you like.
And if you don't like anything, it's the periodical equivalent of
The Economist.
food that you like.
Bad food is The Economist. Good food, Current Affairs.